So, Katie Couric, a mainstream journalist who's now trying to sell a book, decided to release some more information about her 2016 interview with the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. By justice, I mean Supreme Court Justice, who was kind of upheld as a feminist icon for many years. And like so much so, in fact, that they made like loving memes of her and such, like she was some kind of progressive superhero. And one of the things that Katie Couric recently revealed, I assume to try to bring more attention to her book, was that she had to actually edit that interview because of things that Ruth Ginsburg said. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to attempt to show you some of the video. And if for some reason there isn't any, then that just means there's going to be another BitChute version of this one. But let's talk a little bit about this. For a while, this was a common meme, the notorious RBG, you can't handle the Ruth. And it seems like people on the left now, being exposed to the fact that she had a sensible point of view in regards to certain topics that they would rather people were not sensible about, they can't handle the truth about the Ruth. But before those sensible positions were revealed to the public, she was upheld as like a tireless and resolute champion of justice. A liberal Supreme Court jurist forged her place in history as a defender of women's rights. When that was all she was in the public eye, they were worshiping her like an icon. And there's two parts of the interview with Katie Couric that I would like to share with you. And the first one, ironically, has an awful lot to do with censorship, which is a topic that I've been talking about quite a bit here. Because the left has become very comfortable with censorship as of late. And if you remember, and ironically, she does the same thing, I bring up examples of how the left shouldn't be comfortable with censorship at all, because the left was once subject to the same kind of witch hunts and censorship that it is now entertaining. Like, they want to go after everybody who might just have been a Trump supporter, for example. They say things like Trump supporters or people who voted for Trump should not be allowed to have jobs, etc., etc.
Do you worry about some of the rhetoric you're hearing out there and some of the discourse that's been going on over the past several months?
It's distressing, but I'm also hopeful that it will go away. As think of other bad times in U.S. history. Think of the days of Senator Joe McCarthy, when many people in your line of business, in the entertainment world, were blacklisted because in the 30s they had belonged to some socialist youth group. Our Congress then was forgetting that we had a First Amendment that said we have the right to think, speak, and write as we believe, and not as Big Brother government tells us we should believe. And it doesn't matter whether that Big Brother is the government of the then Soviet Union or our government. Our government has a constitution that says that's off limits to you. People have freedom to think, speak, and write as they believe. That's so important, so precious to the United States, that we tolerate, even applaud our differences, and still are able to pull together.
So again, the notorious RBG, spitting out the truth, which is that censorship is evil, period. And that the left should remember that there was a time when the left was doing its best to try to survive censorship, which is why they shouldn't be okay with it now. And it kind of ties into the next part, because even though she disagrees with the tactics of Colin Kaepernick, and people who do things like burn flags, she still ardently defends their right to do these things. And along the same lines, if that's the way you feel, and I'm sure you do, then you'll notice that she didn't make any exceptions. She didn't say that it's okay to censor Republicans, it's okay to censor conservatives, it's okay. No, everybody's allowed to speak, period. And that fundamental right that is afforded to us in the United States is the only reason that there is a leftist movement. Period.
Justice Ginsburg, how do you feel about San Francisco 49ers player Colin Kaepernick and other NFL players who have basically refused to stand for the national anthem?
What do I think? I think it's really dumb of them. Would I arrest them for doing it? No. I think it's dumb and disrespectful. I would have the same answer if you asked me about flag burning. I said, I think it's a terrible thing to do, but I wouldn't lock a person up for doing it. I would point out how ridiculous it seems to me to do such an act. But it's dangerous to arrest people for conduct that is not doesn't jeopardize the health or well-being of other people. It's a symbol they're engaged in.
But when it comes to these football players, you may find their actions offensive.
Yes.
But what you're saying is it's within their rights to exercise those actions.
Yeah, if they want to be stupid, there's no law that should be preventive. If they want to be arrogant, there's no law that prevents them from that. What I would do is strongly take issue with the point of view that they are expressing when they do that.
Now, I will post the link to the articles here as a source, but there was something else that she said that would be a huge controversy if it came out of any public figure, especially one that was upheld as a progressive leftist icon, that were not in the video. But it says, such protests show a contempt for a government that has made it possible for their parents and grandparents to live a decent life, which they probably could not have lived in the places they came from. As they became older, they realized that this was youthful folly. That is like a bold statement. And if you were to say something like this now, you'd be called a white nationalist. It's like, what are you saying? Are you saying if you don't like it, you should go back to your home country? I have to say that I agree with her assessment of that particular style of protest. I don't think that kneeling during the national anthem or burning the American flag has ever convinced anybody to be more interested in your perspective unless they were already, willing to listen, basically, unless they were already on your side. Activism should be something that is done for the purposes of convincing people that you are right. And if you're just doing something that's going to invoke a negative emotional response, you're clouding the minds of the people that you're trying to reach with their emotions. You don't want to do that. It's not just that it's wrong, it's just ineffective. It doesn't work. And that's the reason why the only kind of things we got out of this was pushback. So nobody just suddenly said, wow, I suddenly care more about police shootings because I saw this overpaid, fantastically wealthy quarterback kneel at a football game. It doesn't work like that. And people who, you offend, for example, by burning the flag, none of them just suddenly come around and go, I didn't understand your perspective on what you feel the government is wrong, is doing is wrong, and then you went and burned a flag, and suddenly I had an epiphany. You get the opposite reaction. That's why I oppose it. It just doesn't work. It's not just about whether or not it's right or wrong. It doesn't work. So if your activism isn't effective, what the hell are you doing it for? Other than for self-gratification and feeling like you put your middle finger up at the man, which doesn't actually, move anything forward so far as actually getting an agenda to be accepted by the common people. If that's what your objective is, great. But then you need to look at the strategies that you're employing, just like blocking freeways has never made anybody more interested in your cause. There are other ways. And Martin Luther King was kind of a master of this, but if you bring that up now, then you're sold, well, he was shot. And, instead they're trying to push, well, you didn't like when Colin Kaepernick kneeled, so now we're going to burn shit. Because I'm sure that looting and destruction of property will do wonders for convincing people that any prejudices about black people that they had were unjustified. No, it's not effective. It doesn't work. So, predictably, of course, when even just the revelation of her opposing what Colin Kaepernick was doing came out, the left turned on her, and I've seen them just kind of squirm in different Twitter threads trying to figure out how they want to process that their icon and hero is not just verbatim spitting out all of the dialogue exactly as it is approved to be spit out. And I think it's unfortunate because it again points to this issue of the left becoming dogmatic and religious in the way that they approach things. And now, the work that this woman did that was a hell of a lot more effective overall in trying to garner any kind of, progress will all be cast aside because, she dared to in any way speak blasphemy against the new religion. And this is, in my opinion, a quintessential example of why I do the work that I do. Because of the fact that, aside from the fact that people in general need to be fully aware of how these sorts of things go on in their lives and how their, information was withheld, for example, to give people a certain perspective about this woman. They found out that she didn't, follow the mold perfectly. And of course, as a result, they needed to do a cover-up. And shortly after she made these statements, for example, and that was brought about, I guess it was the press corps not the press corps, basically the people who work for the Supreme Court said that she has misspoken and we want you to take that out of her, out of the interview, out of the, report. And in addition to that, one of the people journalists who tried to talk Katie Couric out of telling anybody about this said, well, she probably just didn't understand the question. No, she understood the question. She was a very smart lady. She got it just fine. That's just people scrambling, basically, to try to figure out some way to preserve, the meme that they've built out of this person, rather than maybe taking the moment and thinking to themselves, man, I trust this lady about a lot of things. Maybe I should reevaluate the way I think about this. Nope. Blasphemer. Witch. Got a burner. Thanks again for tuning in, folks. Please like, subscribe, and share. Ring the bell. I've already, I basically was monetized for about 4 days because Adam suggested I would get better treatment on the algorithm. And that didn't last, and I don't actually, I'll appeal it, but I don't expect to win any said appeal. So I'm still reliant on your direct support. So if you could consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar or PayPal, whether it's a one-time or a regular subscription, I would seriously appreciate it. And thanks again for tuning in. And again, to those of you who have been contributing, if you have any show ideas or any things that you'd like me to cover, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you go to my website, v-radio.us, you'll find a link tree where you can find my Discord, my Telegram, my Facebook, etc. And you can reach out and talk to me. I'm very receptive in that way. And don't forget, obviously, to, I do engage in the comments. So if you've enjoyed this content and there's something specific you want me to talk about, bring it to my attention. Basically, I work for you guys at this point. I'm not going to compromise my point of view, and I can't promise you that I'll agree with everything that you say, or basically that I'm going to give you the take that you want to hear. But I would hope that if you're contributing to me, it's because you know that I'm not going to do that. I have no intention of mentally spoon-feeding anybody anything. I'm not interested in that. I don't care if you agree with me about everything. I just want you to think. So thanks again, guys. And again, also one more thing. You'll also find a link to my BitChute. And as I have had videos that I've removed recently, quite a bit of them actually, make sure that you always check out my BitChute channel if for some reason a video mysteriously disappears that you wanted to watch. Or just periodically look at it, because I'm probably going to re-upload some stuff there that's just not going to be available on YouTube anymore. Thanks again for tuning in.